Hi,
Hey
everyone.
everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Lucy, and we run Sticker Guru, a stationery and stickers shop.
We created the Big Plans podcast to share the things we've learned over the past 6 years of running our own business. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into this episode. This week, we are talking about how we plan for a productive week. So, we are going to be talking about all of the different things that we do and the tools that we use for how we have a productive work week. So, I'll let you
Get started?
get us started. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, this is a highly, highly, highly requested. Like, we got so many questions about this. And I think one of the biggest things is that we have a forest slash tree meetings, which I did not understand the concept of forest slash tree meetings when I first heard about it. But it's pretty, I think the terms speak for themselves. So like forest meeting is looking at things from like a bigger picture, whereas tree
Mhm.
meetings is looking at things more close
Up
up.
close. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for us, forest meetings are usually our quarterly meetings.
Mhm.
In case you don't know, there are 4 quarters to a year, and so we have this meeting about 4 times a year, and we basically talk about our main goals for the upcoming quarter. We talk about manufacturing deadlines and also any important dates or sales we are doing in that quarter. I did also wanna mention that at the beginning of the year, we will do a, like, year in review type of meeting, so we
And we
kind of,
like
like
plan out the
right,
whole year for next
like,
year.
very, like,
It's like
general, like, loosely, but we will
mhm.
talk about things that, like, maybe we wanted to do differently this year,
Yeah.
whether it's, like, doing things earlier or whatever, we will discuss that then.
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, it's like really helpful to lay out everything.
Mhm.
And we
Yes,
have a document where we put all of this to
right.
reference. So
Yeah,
then for a tree meeting, we have weekly meetings, usually on Sunday or Monday,
mhm,
to discuss any upcoming releases or sales. We also have like a to do list and
yes.
our batching schedule, which we will talk about more later.
Yeah, so we just keep this all in a Google Doc. We will make a new document for each year and we will just keep it running for the entire year. And it's like makes things really easy to like reference back. And I think there was actually 1 year where we didn't do this. And
And it was so bad.
it like, our shop was a mess, like, I don't know how we got anything done that year because I think we had, like, a total of, like, 2 weekly meetings,
Yeah,
and
like, if you
to
look at the
me, I'm like
document, it literally had,
it
like, 2
literally was,
meetings
like it was,
written
like,
in there.
2 January meetings, and then it was blank for the rest of the year, and, like, I think that's, like, insane that we made it through that
Yeah.
year with only doing 2
Yeah,
meetings.
that's, like, crazy to me.
Yeah, that would not fly anymore. We have our weekly meetings, like, every single week, and I look forward to them because I feel like it really does keep us on schedule and keeps us on track.
Yeah, I like it because then everything that we're worried about or, like, it's been on your mind, you just kinda, like,
Mhm.
you dump it out, and
Yeah,
then
it's
we,
sort of
like
like our weekly brain dump also.
yeah, yes, it's great, we like it. And then next up, we have Asana, which is a tool you guys have probably heard us mention quite a bit, but it really is a great tool. You don't have to use Asana, like, I know there's, like, other tools like Trello,
Trello.
but we just use Asana because that's what we started with.
Mhm.
And mainly we use it for design. So we have like a design board specifically where we keep track of the progress of each new release that we're planning to get out.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think we mentioned this, like, a bunch of times, but we basically use, like, a Kanban method where you have like your columns. I won't explain it in too much in detail. If you're curious about what Kanban method is, I highly recommend just Googling it. I'm sure there's a much better explanation for it. But yeah, that's how we keep track of our designs and how we are able to like stay on top of releases. I feel like this year we've definitely ramped up on our releases compared to last year, the last
Mhm.
2 years. And I think our Asana board has really helped us with that.
Yeah, like I kind of can't imagine life before the Asana
Right?
design board.
I feel like it was just, like, a mess
How do
all
we
over
keep
the
track of
place.
anything?
I'm pretty sure it was just in the weekly meeting notes, but, like,
Yeah, or like
I
in our
it
brains.
right, like, it was just, like not very organized.
Yes, that's definitely true. We also used to use Asana as a to-do list, but I do think it is a really good idea to use it as
Mhm.
that, but it's hard for us to maintain, mainly because we already had our Google document notes, so it was just kind of tedious to have to input it into Asana, but I
Yeah.
think it's great to use, especially if you have more than one person on your
Yeah.
team,
I
because you
think
can use it
it's
to assign people stuff, put a deadline.
yeah, and yeah, I think if we had more people on our team, we would be definitely using Asana. But since it's just like us two, we really just refer to the meeting notes for our weekly to-do list. And yeah, so we currently don't use the Asana to-do list.
I will also mention that I have the meeting notes bookmarked, and I literally I have a tab open. I
Oh
always
yeah,
have
I
a tab
have
open.
my tab is always open.
I look at
It's
it every
literally
day.
it's the first tab on my browser and like it never gets closed because I'm always referring back to it.
Yep, yep. So next up is time management, and we actually got a question from the audience. So, and thank you for sending this in. What does a week look like for you? Like Monday is always a design day and Insta post. Tuesday is question mark. Wednesday is cut day, foil day, question mark. I love how they have suggestions on like what, like an example. But yeah, what does your
Right?
calendar look like? This is a great
Yeah,
question.
so we have mentioned batching, I think, in the past, but it's something that we really worked on getting this right. I feel like how we manage our time is through batching. And yeah, since the question was, what does a week look like for you? I will just go ahead and give you an example of this week's our batching schedule. So it's in our meeting notes, and we basically just have like a bullet point for each day, and we'll say like what we are doing for that day. So, for example, on Sunday, Lucy was doing PR team responsibilities. I was doing designing. Monday, we were both preparing to our Tuesday. Tuesday, I am cutting stickers, and then Lucy is editing her video. So basically, like this goes on for the rest of the week, but basically we have one big task for each day, and those are things that we like have to get done on that day.
Yeah, I will say, like, this isn't like, you must, like, it's not hard. It's not like a hard rule, but
Mhm.
it's just really helpful when you're at the
It's like a
beginning of the
yeah,
week.
it's just like a general guide of like, "Oh, this day I'm gonna do this, and the next day I'll do that." Just so that we're never like, "Oh, what should I do today?" Like, we have something already planned out for
Yeah,
that day.
and I'm like, y'all are planners, so I'm sure this is right up your alley. But it's, like,
Mhm.
really helpful to just plan out your week, even if it's
Yeah,
not
if it's
100% going to
like
go that
yeah,
way.
even if you stray off from it, like, you still have, like, a general sense of what each day is gonna be.
Yeah, good question. We have another question. Thank you for sending. Actually, this is a multi-part question. Okay, so wondering if for one of your podcasts you could talk about your weekly and daily to-do lists.
Mhm. Yeah. So our weekly to-do list, like I said, is just from our weekly meeting. It is our brain dump. Everything that we think of that we need to do for that week, we will put it onto the list. And then in terms of our own daily to-do list, that's really just up to our own schedules and like what we want to do for that day. We do have a really like very, very informal stand up at the
Like,
beginning of
yep.
each day. Well, it's usually just, like, on FaceTime or we'll, like, send a
Or
message.
text.
Yeah, text each other, and we basically will just, like, mention what we're working on for that day, and if we need the other person to do something, like, super urgent.
It's
But
like
yeah,
very
it's
informal. Like literally Lisa will be like, I'm cutting stickers today. Or
yeah,
like,
like
I'll be like, I'm designing kits today.
yeah,
That's
it's
it's
not
literally
and, like, usually it's, like, followed by, like, a complaint or something. But
it.
yeah, it's nothing, like, it's nothing formal or, like, anything like that. It's very, like, chill and just
It's just, like, kind
yeah.
of helpful to know what the other person's doing.
Yeah.
Also, it's like, then I'm like, "Oh, yes, this is what I'm focusing on today."
Mhm. Yeah, it is helpful.
So, next up, we have another question. How do you plan your week, and what's the best time-saving and efficiency techniques for a small business?
You can
So
go.
we batch for the whole week as we've talked about. I feel like we've talked so much about batching. You are probably all sick
Yeah.
of hearing the word batching. but we batch for the whole week, and that is honestly our best time-saving technique. Like, there is no other technique
Mhm.
that I can think of that
That has really
that
worked
helps.
as well
Yeah,
as batching.
as yeah.
I feel like the really important thing about batching is that you need to, stick with it. Even if it's, like, something different from what you said you were gonna do, I still think you should focus your day on one task, because I feel like if you, like, miss a day and it just, like, will throw your whole schedule off,
Mm,
and, like, the thing with batching is that you can, like, rearrange the days, so it's like you don't have to do everything on the specific day, but as long as you, like, generally, like, do everything in that week, then you'll be on track. But if you, like, miss a whole day completely and you don't get around to it, then you will be off track by the time the next week starts. So I'd
mhm.
say the problem with batching is that you can easily overschedule yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to have some awareness of how long things will take you to do. I think we have that down pretty good. Like we recorded ourselves actually. This is like I don't know, a year or so ago. We recorded how long?
Yeah,
2 years?
2 years, I think? Yeah.
Time flies. But we had a spreadsheet and we just recorded for over a week how long it took to do certain tasks. So now we have like a pretty good sense of like, okay, it'll take me like X amount of hours or like, half a day to do this.
Mhm. Yeah. I think you should definitely if you're, like, not sure how long things will take, you should spend a week and keep a spreadsheet of all the things that you do and how long it takes for you to complete it. That way, you have, like, a better sense of how long things will take you to do.
Yeah, like I have ADHD, and one of the things that I struggle with is why am I blanking on the word right now? I have time blindness. So like
Oh.
time blindness is like you just like really you lose track of time, especially if
Mhm.
I'm focused, super focused on something, which luckily my job is something that I like to focus on. So
Mhm.
it's very easy for me to just like let hours pass by and not notice it. Like I'll look up and boom, suddenly it's 5 p.m. So definitely I think tracking how long it takes you to do things is helpful.
Mhm.
Especially, like, some things don't need to take that long, and if you know that, but you know that you might end up taking longer, like designing,
Mhm.
it's just, like, a good way to keep yourself on track.
Yeah, and just, like, being aware of how long things will take you to do is also
Yeah.
useful, I think, so then you can, like, manage your time better.
Yeah, and if eventually maybe you get other people on your team, I think that would also be really helpful, so you have an idea of, like, how long they should be taking
Right.
doing something.
Yeah.
Okay, so also just something I want to mention, when you do batching, you will naturally come up with other ways to make things efficient. The best example I can think of is like our kits have a template that we design off of. So that way we're not starting from scratch every time we design a new kit and we can like I can get through kits really quickly by batching
Mhm.
like a bunch of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So I feel like just through batching you will figure out other ways to be efficient.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And our final question, including planning for, so they want to know how we plan for social media posts and now podcasting.
Yeah, so for social media posts, I'll be honest, we are not very good at this.
We struggle with this so
Um
much. It's
We
hard.
yeah, we've struggled with this, like, in the past, and so I will tell you what we used to do and why it didn't work out for us. So, we used to have a calendar on Asana, and basically, we would schedule out every single post. It could be, like, a post, reels, live, or, like, a IGTV every single weekday for, like, a month. So, we would plan things out a month out, and this seemed like a really good idea. I
It started off really,
yeah,
like, started off strong.
but the problem was that if we missed a day, then our whole schedule would just be thrown off. I think we were just a little bit too ambitious with
Mhm.
the
Yep.
calendar and, like, having all these posts. I mean, maybe it was just, like, too much for us to handle. But we if we just, like, missed one day, it was really hard for us to I feel like we would almost feel, like, discouraged
Yeah.
from posting and, like, it was just hard for us to get back on track, and yeah, we just didn't have anyone enforcing the deadlines, so, if we fell off track, we fell off track, like,
Yeah.
no one was there to be like, "Well, you should get back on track."
Yeah, it's very easy to just once you fall off the bandwagon, it's hard to get back on. We didn't have a very good system for recording our Instagram posts, and referring back to batching, like, we should
Mhm.
have batched all of our content, but I feel like we were just, like, at least for me, I was literally editing either the day of or filming, like, the
Right.
day of and
Like,
the day
I
before, just
I was taking, like, product photos, like, literally 30 minutes before they went live, and, like, we were just very much, like I don't know how to describe it, but,
hamster
like,
wheel.
hamster wheel, but, like, things were just, like, up to our throats,
Oh, yeah.
I felt like, we were, like, close to, like, drowning is what it felt
Yeah,
like. Like, the
basically.
water was up to our throat, like, where we were barely just surviving and, like, getting content out, like, right at the last minute, but, yeah, so we were just, like, didn't batch our content, and I think that had to do with we weren't designing far enough in advance, so we couldn't batch,
Mhm.
but I feel like now we're at a pretty good place where we are doing designs, like, further in advance. So
Yeah.
we do have time to, like, take
Do more
photos
content
earlier.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do more co make more content before, like, the releases go live.
Yes.
So
There was a
yeah.
point where literally just, like, everything was right right up to the
Right,
second
right,
it
yeah,
was
right,
due.
right, yeah, and it was just, like, not it was tiring, like, every single
Yeah.
week, just barely keeping up. It was tough, but we actually just hired a social media manager, and I think it has been the best decision that we've made for
Our sanity.
our sanity, for our brand, for
Yeah.
social media, like, it's just really good to have someone holding us accountable,
Because we definitely cannot trust ourselves
yes.
to hold us
Clearly
accountable.
not, like, we have tried doing, like, the calendar on Asana and scheduling everything out, like, I wanna say, like, several times we've tried that,
Several
like,
times.
every single
Yeah.
time we would just fall off the wagon, and I feel like when you have someone holding you accountable I was joking earlier that it kind of feels like we have a gun to our head.
And I was like, "No one's
Um,
holding a gun to your head. You are holding."
probably, like, it's sounds really dramatic for me to say that, but, like, really, just having someone holding us accountable,
Like, you
has
don't
been
wanna
really
fail that
helpful.
person.
Right. You don't want to, like, seem like a slacker or like a failure, so just having someone there to be like, "Oh, yeah, this thing is due on this day," like, completely changes how we post, I
Ho
guess.
Yes, definitely. And then for planning for podcasts, first of all, I just wanna say thank you so much to everyone who mentioned that they listened to our podcast at Go Wild. Like, I
Yeah,
I'm shocked by how
I
many
was really
people
surprised. A lot of
shook.
people came up to us and they were like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast," and I was like, "I thought, like, no one's listening to our podcast," and I was like, "No, you're not."
Yeah.
I was really
I was like,
surprised.
"How did you know about our podcast?" Like, it
Yeah, I was honestly really shocked and, like, thank you to everyone who came up to us. That was really awesome.
seriously made our whole trip. I remember, like, I think the day after I posted our first podcast, we had, like, 8
Mhm.
listens, and I told Lisa we were so excited.
Yeah, I was
We're like,
like, "Oh my
8
god, there's people
people,
listening."
8 people listen to us.
Yeah, like, I was really surprised, but yeah, we've gotten, like, quite a few messages, from, like, shop owners, even from, like, non-shop owners, saying that they listen to our podcast, and I'm
I'm shook.
hoping that you're getting good content out of listening to these podcasts.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and please,
just
please don't hesitate to write us, like, a
oh
bunch
yeah,
send in these questions, like,
yeah,
literally
thank
the
you
question we're
for
answering right now.
mhm,
Please send them in. Please
yeah.
continue doing that.
Yeah, because we love answering your guys' questions, and I feel like we can really, like, go in depth on our podcast versus just, like, on an Instagram story, we can't really go into detail. So, yeah, please keep sending us questions.
Yes, definitely. Okay, but to answer this question,
Mhm.
we have a running list, and we're super new to this whole podcast thing. Like, literally, we've only
Oh, yeah,
recorded,
like,
like,
we're newbies,
we're
like, I think
newbies,
what, this is,
never
like,
done this before.
episode 15?
14,
Um, 14.
like, yeah, like, we're noobs. So, I don't know if this is, like, the best way to go about doing the podcast thing, but what we do is we have a running list of ideas for our podcast and a big like podcast Google Doc thing.
Mhm.
And so
We
that
love
way we're
Google Doc.
never, yes, we love Google Docs in case you can't tell. We're never struggling with like, oh, well, what do we talk about this week? Like we have a list
Mhm.
that we can look at and be like, oh, let's talk about this. That's really helpful. And we've
Mhm.
also planned out topics a few weeks in advance. So that way, like I kind of
Yeah.
have those going in the back of my head. And that way I can like, if I have some ideas, I can just take notes prior
Mhm.
to us recording.
Yeah, and typically we will record on Fridays. We started just, recording one episode every Friday. We would get on a call and we would decide on an episode topic, and then we would go through and write a little outline on our Google Doc of everything that we want to talk about, any questions that we want to answer, and then we would, hit record. So honestly, not a lot of planning is necessary, I feel like, for the podcast. It's honestly, like, really fun to just, like, do this every Friday. It's
Yeah.
almost become, like, some kinda, like, ritual that we do.
Oh, yeah, like, Friday, we have our new releases, and then, like,
Mhm.
I have lunch. Sometimes Lisa gets lunch,
Yeah.
and then we record,
Yes. And then, however, we are currently pre-recording a bunch because for the next couple, I wanna say
like, a
a
month.
month a month,
Yeah.
we either, like, one of us or both of us, we're gonna be, like, out of office. So, yeah, we are pre-recording these, but yeah, I think once we are both back at home on Fridays, we will go back to our weekly, podcast recordings, but so far it's been really good.
Yeah, this is, I think, the most consistent thing we've ever done in our entire life.
Yeah, I'm really
Literally.
I'm honestly, like, shocked, but also really proud of us because
Yeah.
we've been able to, like, record and post very consistently for the podcast
Like, we
every
haven't
single
skipped
week
a
so
single
far.
week.
Yeah, and, like, it doesn't feel, like, tedious or like a chore, and I feel like that's because like, each week it's, like, a different episode,
Mhm.
different, like, topic that we're talking about, but
There's no video editing,
right,
which
it's, like, very
hey,
minimal audio editing, and yeah, it's been really good so far.
yeah, and also I wanted to mention, if you send us, you can either email us or DM us or something, it'll get to us, but, like, DM or email your comment or your questions,
Mhm,
and we put all of your questions into our Google Doc, our big podcast Google Doc, so,
yeah,
like,
and it's honestly, like, really helpful because sometimes we can, like, make a whole episode surrounding a single question, so it's really helpful.
yeah, so if you send in a question, promise you it will go into our document and it will be answered eventually, like, we
Yes.
will get around to every single question, I promise.
Yeah, so I think that answers that question. I hope you guys found some helpful tips on how to plan a productive week. Hopefully, some time management tools and tips you can take away from this episode.
Mhm.
And that is all that we have for this week. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Sticker Guru.
Check out our shop website, stickerguru.com.
You can email us at hello@stickerguru.com.
And you can watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/stickerguru.
Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.